As parents, we have the incredible responsibility of being gatekeepers of information in order to raise more racially conscious children and future adults. The visibility of police brutality, the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as the peaceful protests by professional athletes are recent events exposed to all of our children, no matter their age, their identities, or their race. There's never an age too young to start talking to our children about race. By talking about race with our children, we normalize their curiosity to learn and to understand. We increase their acceptance of people who are different from themselves, and we play a role in opening their hearts and knowing that it's okay to talk about race when we do as adults. We model through our own behavior. So let's all do our part in fighting racial inequity in sport, in society, and even in our own homes by openly talking and learning about race alongside our children. The time is now. A few of my colleagues from the Association of Applied Sports Psychology want to share with you how they talk to their children about race.
I think talking to your kids or your children about race and when you should, I think it just depends on you and the family and when you think they're age appropriate to. You know, I started with my twins at an early age. They're 7. And we started talking about it and just in the fact of who they are and their different nationalities. So they're 50% Ghanaian because I'm 100% Ghanaian. And then they are 12.5 German, 12.5 South American, 12.5 Mexican, and 12.5 Austrian. And so what I decided to do was to have these designated days so we can celebrate all the different ethnicities of them. So we've had our first one. We had a Ghana day, and so we made Ghanaian food and wore Ghanaian outfits, and I invited my cousins over, and we talked about the different parts of Ghana, and we just lots of learning, educational. We played the drums, we listened to music, and they saw pictures of me when I was little and living in Ghana, and so it was just a big exploration of Ghana, and so we just celebrated Ghana. So we'll have a German day and we'll have an Austrian day and so on and so forth, because I think it's just really be impactful them to learn more about who they are. I think that helps them develop, and so I'm looking so much forward to that, and I can't wait for me to share that with them, and I hope that they continue that same tradition as they continue to grow, that they have these different days to designate their different races and ethnicities.
At times, when we start thinking about how to talk about race inclusion to our children, we start to believe that it's too early, they're too young, they don't understand. And when at times that could be the reality of it, it's not necessarily true that we cannot embrace with them a process, a journey that helps them to understand that the world is not as homogeneous as we often are pushed to believe. In our family, we have a 2-year-old. And obviously talking about these issues is not as simple. So what we chose to do is to embrace together this process by looking for books with illustrations that show people from different countries and different religions with different cultural customs and traditions. Looking for toys that do not only show white people and that instead are trying to be a little bit more inclusive. This is not an easy journey. It's not an easy search. And yet, it's what we can make our priorities with our children. In addition to that, we are lucky because we come from different cultures and we have a way to celebrate all of them. And what we chose to do is to try to integrate other celebrations from different cultures in our daily living. First, great time to celebrate, but second, shows our daughter how important it is not only understand who we are, how we look, and what we celebrate, and instead trying to appreciate and celebrate who the others are, how they look, and what they celebrate.
Talking about race and engaging in conversations about race tend to be seen as taboo, right? One of the biggest things that we can do in order to even start those conversations is just to normalize having conversations around race. The only way that you can do that, though, is to educate yourself. So understanding what anti-racism is as a concept and the different ideologies behind it, what inclusive language is and why inclusive language is really, really important to understand, what justice and equity and diversity mean, right? All of these terms that get thrown around often, and our kids are hearing these terms and may not necessarily understand what they mean. We want to make sure that we're putting ourselves in a position when our kids are asking us about race-related issues, we have the knowledge, we have the information to provide for them, because if we don't, someone else will. One of the questions that I get asked often by my own children is why? Why are these things happening? You know, why are these images of men and women being killed and attacked in these different ways? Why is this happening? And I can't just say, oh, because of racism, this is what happens in this country, right? Because that, as a parent, that doesn't feel like I'm really giving my child what they're asking for. So I make sure that whenever I can and however I can, I'm informing myself, and I have at least a response, right? Out of respect of the fact that my children want this information and want to engage in this dialogue, I want to make sure that as a parent, I'm prepared for those conversations.
As the mother of multiracial boys, my partner and I decided early on that we would intentionally talk about race and racism with our children. Our 1.5-year-old right now, we are reading to him Anti-Racist Baby by Dr. Kendi. It's a great book, a starting point, and toddlers and young children love it. If you have a little bit older children, our 4.5-year-old is currently reading Little Legends, Exceptional Men in Black History. Now, while we don't know if our sons will identify as Black, we know that it is important that we recognize Black history is U.S. and world history, and we have a part in not erasing it. If you have older children, let's say 10 to 17, this book, Is Anti-Racist, is a great text. You can walk alongside the journey of anti-racism with your child by going through the self-reflections with them. It's written by Tiffany Jewell, and I strongly recommend it. I hope each and every one of us will do our part in talking about race with our children.
Sports can be a great vehicle for talking about race because it is a space that isn't homogenous, right? You see other in that space often, so it allows for you to have very nuanced conversations with your children around race. They may be asking why the WNBA and the NBA were making statements around Black Lives Matter. They may be asking questions about statements by Bubba Wallace and Simone Manuel around anti-racism. They may also be asking questions historically, right? Asking about why did John Carlos and Tommy Smith have their fist up in the Olympics? So we can use sport as a great way to have conversations with our children around race.